Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lindamood-Bell Academy virtual open house. My name is Emily Jane. I am the director of the Lindamood-Bell Academy, and it's such a pleasure and a joy to be able to talk with you today, to come into your homes or to your places of business, wherever you're viewing this presentation, to tell you a little bit more about our unique and dynamic school. So as we get started, obviously on this first slide, you can see there's some contact information. We want you to take that down because you're bound to have some questions with the information that I'm presenting today. We're going to have an opportunity for some Q&A after the presentation is over. So that'll be exciting and a great way to get some of your additional questions answered. But sometimes people want to wait or ruminate on information and ask questions later. So we want you to have that opportunity as well. This information will be popping up again in the future as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for attending today. And like I said, I'm just really excited to share with you about our wonderful and unique school environment. The Lindamood-Bell Academy is truly a dream come true. And a quote from Nancy Bell, our CEO and co-author and author of many of our programs is, "My dream to create a Lindamood-Bell school has come true. We're excited to share the Lindamood-Bell Academy with you and help make your school dreams come true." And that's exactly what we're doing here in Academy. This environment, as you're going to be able to see and learn throughout this presentation, is like nothing else that exists. We have found a way to truly blend very effective and research validated remediation in conjunction with a curriculum that can be differentiated to meet every student's needs. So the founders of Lindamood-Bell are Patricia Lindamood and Nancy Bell. And you can see their lovely picture in the background here. And what I want to show you with this slide is that our history spans quite a number of decades. In fact, we became incorporated in 1986. And from 1986 to 2019, we've been involved in a lot of different projects, a lot of different growth, and a lot of different building, all of which has the same sole purpose of providing a differentiated instructional experience for students who are struggling, regardless of diagnosis, regardless of how big or little their gap is. Pat Lindamood and Nancy Bell have together created this environment, these programs that address those learning issues in a way like no one else has ever done so. So we've gone from instructional experience to scientific research. And I'm going to share a little bit of that with you later on in our presentation. It's dynamic. We've gone from having learning centers to school projects, to partnerships with school districts, to seasonal learning camps, to now our school. So in the beginning, we started asking a lot of questions because we've worked with thousands upon thousands of individuals of all ages and all ability levels and all different kinds of learning challenges. Some of them have a diagnosis, some of them don't. We have years of sitting across from children or adults who struggle with trying to read a word, trying to comprehend and understand a paragraph. And that provided us with a very unique insight into the learning process. We can now answer why some students can easily learn to read words and yet others cannot. We can answer why some individuals continue to decode below their potential despite years of special education and services, a variety of reading programs and or private tutoring. We can now answer these questions. We can tell you why some children continue to have difficulty memorizing sight words. Isn't that a key thing that we see as a component for students who struggle to read? Those sight words, right? We can tell you why many students can read words and text very easily, but yet they struggle to remember and comprehend what they just read. And we can tell you why many students can still read word for word, even at the end of phonological instruction. We can tell you a primary cause of dyslexia, and most important, the cause of dyslexia can be remediated. This is groundbreaking information. And again, I'm teasing you with that right now, but we're going to talk a little bit more about our contribution in that realm. It's extremely exciting. Dyslexia does not have to be a lifelong struggle. So Nancy Bell says that sensory input, and I'm going to talk more about that as we continue on this presentation to give you a foundation for where we're coming from. Sensory input is the foundation for cognition and for learning. The primary cause of learning difficulty is not low intelligence, socioeconomic status, gender, education, nor is it motivation. After a lot of experience in scientific research, we can tell you that the sensory input of imagery, making mental images in your mind's eye, as you can see Nancy starting to draw here, is the primary foundation for cognition and for learning. There's three types, I just showed you three types of sensory cognitive functions. The first one is something that many of you out there might be familiar with, this term called phoneme awareness. That is the ability to perceive the identity, number, and order of sounds within a word. So for example, in the word stop, s is first, t is second, ah is third, and p is fourth. That's perceiving identity, order, and number of sounds within a word. Now, there's a component part to that, and that is symbol imagery. It's another separate sensory cognitive function. Sensory meaning using one of your senses, cognitive meaning the way your brain processes that sensory system. Symbol imagery is the ability to create mental imagery for sounds and letters within words. So instead of just sounding out a word, now it's the ability to visually image the letters that go with that word. So perhaps when I gave you the example of segmenting those sounds within stop, you might have already been picturing S-T-O-P. Which one was faster for you? Going or S-T-O-P? These are going to be the component parts of reading we're going to dive into in just a little bit. A third sensory cognitive function, it's a little bit different than these other two that I talked to you about, because the first two relate to the actual act of reading. This one, concept imagery, is the ability to create an imaged gestalt or a whole picture from oral and written language. Now, I'm going to explain all these in just slightly more detail for you to help you get, if this is new for you, a little bit more of a frame of reference. Because again, the reason I'm diving into this part of our process is because this is the foundation for our school. This is what makes our school so unique, is that we rely on the development of, the stimulation of these sensory cognitive functions as a foundation to then apply over to curriculum. There's two types of imagery. There's parts and there's whole. The parts is symbol imagery. Parts is looking at those little bitty letters that go into creating a single word. This is where we get sight word recognition, the ability to sound out words, the ability to memorize spelling words, and ultimately the ability to read fluidly on a page and just say the words in a nice, smooth cadence. The opposite part of that is the imagery of the whole. This is the purpose behind reading. The purpose behind reading is not just to read word by word. It's to get a mental picture, like Sophie is doing right here, for the content that you're reading. This is the point of school. This is the point of being able to matriculate from one grade to another. It's to get that imagery that's going to serve as your background, as your base knowledge for the next level of information that you're going to get in your next level of school or the next level of your job, right? So let's talk for just a moment and dissect that symbol imagery component very quickly. So symbol imagery combines phonological processing and orthographic imagery for reading and spelling words. It can also be called orthographic memory. So for example, our friend Buzz here has heard the word short, and now he's picturing the parts, perhaps, of how to spell that. Oops. I'm going to give you a test. Sorry, I just gave it away for a moment. But this is the key function for symbol imagery. And now I'm going to test your symbol imagery very, very quickly. Are you ready? Take a picture of this word in your mind, because I'm going to take it away. I'm going to ask you a question about it. So here's what I want to know. What was the third letter you pictured? Hopefully you said an I. If you said an I, you would be correct. If I ask you to switch the last two letters around, and what would that word say? I hope you'd say flips. Because if you flip that S and P around, your word is going to say flips. That's utilizing your symbol imagery. That is the ability, once that stimulus goes away, to create that image in your mind's eye and then access that image to help you answer those questions. And that's the key function that not only helps us identify and decode words better, but anchor those in a sight vocabulary, and then anchor those even further for not only reading fluency and accuracy, but also the memorization of those spelling words. So I want to introduce you to some symptoms of weak symbol imagery. And that also means there might be some weakness in phonological processing combined as well. Weak word reading skills, word attack, and word recognition. So the ability to sound out words as well as instantaneously recognize those sight words. If you are weak in that function that I just did with you with flips, then this might be something that you're seeing as a weakness in your child. Orthographic awareness and phonological awareness. Again, that simple ability to access those sounds and image those letters. Memorizing sight words, fast, accurate decoding, not just spit and grunt reading, but being able to call out those words very swiftly and, like I said earlier, in a very even cadence. The ability to accurately self-correct. If someone's reading about volleyball and they say volleyball is an entertaining spot, and they go, oh no, there's an R in their sport. Volleyball is an entertaining sport. That was a pretty quick self-correct. And some of you might have, even from the context, been able to correct me even faster than I could verbalize it to you. But that fast, accurate correction when you make a mistake is also something that we can tell if a student has strong or weak symbol imagery. The contextual reading. Sometimes students will guess rather than rapidly and accurately decoding or identifying those sight words. Orthographic spelling. Sometimes kids will spell a word like this instead of R-I-G-H-T, right? We've seen that a lot. That could indicate a slight weakness in that ability. So the flip side of the coin, you might say, is another kind of imagery. So think back to that picture that I showed you. We've got Buzz on one side and Sophie on another. I'd like to introduce you to Sophie now. Sophie is a student, she's based on a real student, as a matter of fact, that we saw, who could read like the wind. She read and spelled anything you put in front of her. But to retain the imagery, to retain the comprehension and understanding and then interpretation of that information was really hard for her. So Sophie had a weakness in concept imagery, that ability to create that mental picture or movie for comprehension and thinking. And so again, I want to write this on here because really it is the ability to create a movie in your mind's eye for information that you're receiving, okay, whether you're reading it or listening to it. And so let me give you an example of how you can test your own concept imagery. Let me read this phrase to you. The big black horse ran across the green field. With his head held high, his hooves pounded the ground, and his thick mane blew wildly in the wind. It makes me want to narrate an audiobook. I get really excited about this kind of imagery. Now, How many of you, from that sentence that hopefully you read and also listened to, can picture the color of the horse? What did you picture that horse doing? Where did you picture that horse? If you pictured the horse eating hay at the barn, probably you're not matching, right? This horse is running across a green field, his mane blowing wildly in the wind. I mean, I'm picturing like the Black Stallion or Black Beauty or something like that. Not a horse sitting stationary in a barn eating some hay. So this is the ability to create that mental imagery. And if a student struggles to do that, they're going to struggle with a lot pertaining to curriculum. Because what happens is information, whether it's oral or written, is going to go in one ear and out the other. So for example, students with comprehension issues, sometimes they're suggested to use audiobooks for whatever reason. Well, an audiobook may not help create that mental imagery in the mind's eye. So what happens is this student, this Sophie, is going to grasp parts and random details and some facts, but maybe not put it together for that whole picture. The ramifications with a weakness in this area are big, because here's what happens. You have to have that imaged whole in your head so that you can do higher order thinking. It used to be that students transitioned from learning to read to reading to learn right around the 4th grade. And now what we're seeing with all of these pieces that are making students do this critical thinking aspect, these higher order thinking skills, that's happening as early as kindergarten now, right? And if you don't picture content well to remember it and process it and understand it, you're going to struggle with getting a main idea. Your student's going to struggle with drawing conclusion, making inferences, predicting and extending. Isn't that what the majority of science and social studies and ELA and even math is all about? It's taking the information you're being presented with and extending it even further. Being able to evaluate a situation. These are going to be struggles for the student that has a weakness in making that movie in their mind's eye. So let me now introduce you to some symptoms of weak concept imagery. We've already talked about several of them. Written language comprehension can be a challenge. Even for the best reader, it still goes in one ear and out the other. How many times has maybe one of your children that you either teach or that you've raised, or even yourself, read through a paragraph and you had to read it again? And maybe you had to read it again to try to continue to pull out additional information. Let's face it, we all get distracted. This goes beyond simple distraction. This goes to, I'm struggling to make all of this make sense and put it together. Critical and logical thinking and problem solving, oral language comprehension. Following directions can be really difficult. Sometimes it's not that kids choose not to follow directions, it's that they simply can't hold all of that language. Oral language expression, written expression are going to be tricky. Grasping humor and interpreting social situations. That is a key clue in oftentimes identifying a concept imagery weakness. When a student doesn't laugh at a joke, even if it's an obvious joke, that might be a clue. Understanding cause and effect, mental mapping and responding to a communicating world. Understanding when and how that give and take of conversation, an appropriate give and take of conversation, can be really tricky for students. And so I've talked about these separately, but let's look now really quickly at a paradigm of integration of these skills, okay? So auditory processing, that phonological sounding out word attack, is one piece to the reading puzzle. Visual processing, that symbol imagery, word recognition. Again, this is your sight words, okay? So we have the ability to decode over here. Oops, C-O. Can spell that correctly. Use my symbol imagery to correct that for you. And our sight words. So those are the parts to putting reading together on the page. Then you put those together for reading on the page, and now you have to read and use context and use your vocabulary to help support how you're sounding out those words and how you're recognizing those sight words. But really, again, the whole purpose is that big picture, comprehension. But with school, with content and curriculum, and with reading in general, whether it's, how to hook up your VCR or a social studies textbook, you have to put it together for critical thinking and understanding the content, or else it's all for naught. You have to blend these two together. And so if we put this on a spectrum, what it can look like is Buzz, our friend with weak decoding skills, is on one side. And oftentimes a common diagnosis for a student who struggles with weak decoding, weak reading, weak spelling is dyslexia. That's a very common diagnosis. It's not the only one, but it's a very common one. But then we go over here to our friend Sophie, who has trouble, again, making those mental movies in her mind to comprehend. And that's the other side of the spectrum with weak comprehension. You can have a student who's strong at decoding but weak with comprehension, who's strong with comprehension and weak at decoding, or you can have someone who spans both of these and has sort of this dual weakness, right? Now, sometimes a diagnosis that might be associated, not always, but might be, with a person who struggles with that concept imagery is hyperlexia, or even an autism spectrum diagnosis. And that's why we have those up there. It's not always, but oftentimes that can be a diagnosis that's associated. So what does that foundation, again, have to do with our academy? I felt that it's really pertinent to explain where we're coming from. And I hope you've hung out with me through this part, because again, it's the foundation for what makes our model so different. Our school is founded on over 30 years of experience and research. That's critical and crucial in our learning centers. What we created years ago has now expanded into the Lindamood-Bell Academy. Students of all ages from kinder through 12th grade can stay with us, not just with sensory cognitive instruction and remediation, but now for a school experience, right? And be in our positive, successful learning environment, and yet still be enrolled in school. It is a dream come true, and it's my dream, quite frankly, to be the director of this school. I feel a little bit like a pioneer. So our mission statement, it's very crucial that you understand what is our goal when we're working with our students. Lindamood-Bell Academy believes passionately. That is something we all have, every person who works with your students, passion for this process. We believe passionately that all individuals can learn to their potential. We are a unique K-12 private school that develops, here it is, the Imagery language foundation, those sensory cognitive processes that we just got done defining and explaining and learning about. We apply that for success in language processing and for success in curriculum. If those foundations are missing, then we're still going to be seeing that same pattern over and over of lack of academic success in curriculum. And as I'm going to explain to you through this presentation, success is going to look different. Success is not just straight A's, okay? I want to dispel that right now. Our approach. You're going to hear words and you're going to hear me say unique, differentiated, but those are powerful words that ring very, very true. We offer a unique in-person or online accredited private school where we develop, again, imagery language foundation for language and literacy skills and success with curriculum. Here's another way to kind of look at this. So we often will start with a period of instruction for our students to develop those sensory cognitive processes. We learn where those weaknesses are through assessment. We do assessment, we identify those weaknesses, we address those weaknesses with our remediation, and then we immediately go on to, once those are addressed, the goal of Academy, which is a year-long application of the Imagery language foundation, those sensory cognitive processes, directly to curriculum. And that means a more independent learner, not a learner who's going to get straight A's, but a learner who maybe does homework on their own for the first time, maybe reads their first page of text independently, maybe gets a C on their spelling test, whereas before they would have shut down and maybe not even tried. There's all manner of success at Lindamood-Bell Academy, and I get the pleasure and the privilege of seeing it daily with all of the work samples that come in, with the stories that our instructors are telling and that our teachers are telling and that our students are showing off. So who are our students? What a perfect segue. We have students of all different backgrounds, ages, ability levels, diagnoses. And really, they are ones who are going to thrive in a non-traditional environment. Maybe they're getting lost in the classroom. Maybe even some of those small groups that are offered, excuse me, in a classroom environment or even in a special education environment are still not working out for them. We see students who work best maybe one-to-one. We have a model that is all one-to-one education. We have a model that combines one-to-one as well as some group work. We have students who might have some quite unique interests, for example, outside of the school day, actors, athletes who are junior Olympians, for example, and have a very rigorous training schedule. Students who maybe have therapeutic schedules that will not allow them to attend a traditional school environment. Students with learning challenges and, again, diagnosed disabilities, and even students who might be even gifted and talented, but again, need to move at a pace that's different from what they're getting in their school environment. So, as I've mentioned, we are a unique private school. The Academy is like nothing else that's out there. We are accredited. We are based in California. But the best way to think about this truly is, even if you're in New York or you're in Minnesota or you're down in Florida, you can still take advantage of getting a California education because that's what you're going to be getting. It's almost like the idea of going away to boarding school without leaving the comfort of your own home or your own home state or town. So think of it that way. That's how Lindamood-Bell Academy works. The Imagery Language Foundation is at the core of every student's learning. We seamlessly integrate the questioning that we use for those remediation programs into our curriculum. So instead of saying, what's a pioneer? We might say, I want you to picture from what you just read, a pioneer. What does a pioneer look like? What do you see them wearing? Where do you picture them? Because we want to develop the imagery for that vocabulary word so the student has a way to connect to that information. What letters do you picture when you spell the word important? How many syllables do you see in the word important? Connecting those parts, those letter parts, to the whole of that spelling word. These are the pieces of language that we are seamlessly integrating into your child's curriculum every hour of every day that they're with us. A flexible environment. We can do classes strictly online with a live instructor at all times. It's not just a point-and-click curriculum. It's not just a work independently curriculum. We have the same model in person, and we can do a blend of that. Maybe some of our students live far away, so they can come to the Learning Center a few days a week, but maybe they need to stay and work from home in a blended online environment a couple of other days a week. We have full day schedules and we have partial day schedules at this point in time. It's a wonderful way, again, for those actors and actresses and athletes and those individuals who have a therapeutic need to be able to still participate in school and get the credits that they need. Throughout this presentation, I hope you're taking note of the photos that I'm showing you. The beauty of this is they're not stock photos. These are actual faces of our instructors and those precious little souls and even older souls that we get to work with on a daily basis. And for me, that's hugely important to be able to say, we've worked with these kiddos. This is, this young man's word wall of vocabulary words and spelling words that he was working on and created his own learning space. Here's an example of one of our kiddos right here doing some online curriculum, but partnered with her instructor right there for that support that she needed. So the individualized learning model could be in a small group, but it can also be a model that is strictly one-to-one. And we're going to help figure out through the course of assessment and interpretation of those results what type of environment we're going to recommend that's going to be optimal for your child. Again, the online instruction replicates what we do. So even if you're the student and I'm the instructor right now, kind of similar to what we're doing, really, right? I'm instructing you on Academy, but this is the live model of instruction that we're doing as we go through curriculum. It's very exciting. Our students do not work alone. They get coaching every step of the way. We use a recognized and standards aligned curriculum, and each child is getting a customized, personalized education plan. We've got a team of instruction specialists, of curriculum specialists, and credentialed teachers that are overseeing each and every child that comes to Lindamood-Bell Academy. And so what I'd like to do right now is I want to pause for a minute, because I've been telling you a lot about Academy, but at Lindamood-Bell and at Lindamood-Bell Academy, we like to just not only tell you, but we like to show you. So I hope you take just a moment and enjoy this very short video that gives you a little taste of some of the extracurriculars and some of the fun component parts that move above and beyond our curriculum. And I'll be back in just a moment to tell you a little bit more about those pieces. But first, let me show you. So I hope you enjoyed that. I always love being able to see, especially in a video form, how all of these pieces kind of come together. And what I hope that you saw was that not only is the student the center of everything we do, but there's a lot of additional components that we add to our school and that we have built up over just our 3 years. We're going into our 4th year now of being a school. So our student-centric model consists of curriculum and instruction team members. And yes, you heard that correctly. There are plural, tons of people who are partnered together for your student and their academic journey. We are having them overseen by managers of curriculum. And then also in partnering with Pearson Connections curriculum, we've developed this very well-rounded focus for the students. Our learning model, and this is just another way to look at it, is we have managers and even directors of curriculum and instruction who are overseeing each child. There are multiple credentialed teachers who have their hands in the pot, so to speak, and are making these curriculum plans. And we've got instructional experts that are the experts in not only taking those curriculum plans and implementing them, but they're the experts in those sensory cognitive functions. And that's really critical. What I want to tell you transparently right now is not every instructor that is working with your student is going to have a teaching credential. They are supervised by multiple folks with multiple types of credentials, including teaching credentials. But not every individual instructor is going to do that with your child, and that is okay. Let me tell you why. Because instructional experts need to know how to take those sensory cognitive foundations, that imagery language connection, and apply it to curriculum, okay? That's really critical. We are very particular in how we hire anybody who works for Lindamood-Bell and Lindamood-Bell Academy. And we make sure that those sensory functions are intact for those instructors as well. So not only have they become experts on how to teach reading and how to teach comprehension and how to teach the combination of that for math, but also then how to apply that to curriculum with the support and guidance of our credentialed teachers. Very well-rounded and supported model we've got here. So a day in the life. This is what that video you just watched would have illustrated for you a bit. So we do morning mashup meetings, call it homeroom, if you will. It's a chance for our students to come together either online or in person and get some daily news and notes. Sometimes this is done, by the way, more than a couple times a week because we want our students to have time to come together and bond. With offering a one-to-one environment, socialization is key. And what I'm also going to show you is that there's lots of different opportunities for not only individualized learning, but also those social experiences that really help a child thrive in at school. We offer a consistent daily schedule. Now, everybody knows that people get sick, right? But we offer a consistent schedule of clinicians as much as we can, of instructors. We offer a consistent schedule of what subjects we do at what time so that there is consistency, there is expectation for that student. And that can create comfort and it can create relationship between instructors and students. We strive very, very much to create that because child's learning is also based not just in structure, but in relationship. And that's something that means a lot to us. Remember I mentioned that passion that we all have? This is a critical part of that passion, is developing those relationships and that trust with a student who in many instances have never trusted a school personnel in their life. Instruction is delivered in various formats. Again, I mentioned sort of the online, the one-to-one, the in-person, the small group, but even instruction in learning modules, in calendar time for some of our littles. That's a new component that we're offering this year that's going to develop and supplement our Kinder Second curriculum. Very exciting. Lots of different hands-on and project-based learning opportunities, along with some more traditional elements of textbooks or online textbooks of curriculum as well. Breaks for snack and lunch. Yes, recess might look a little different in a Lindamood-Bell Academy Learning Center than, say, at a traditional public school. But that's okay. We still have opportunities for students to get that social activity, get that physical activity in their break time and their lunchtime schedule. We also offer a complimentary zero period. So from 8 in the morning until 8:30 in every learning center, we offer 30 minutes of zero period. And that can look like a student coming in to do a little extra work on their homework. Maybe they didn't get it completed the night before and they say, Mom, I really want to get to school early so I can finish that component. We offer that at no additional charge to our families. Sometimes we may not have, or the student may not have homework, but maybe we have some seasonal activities that we have provided for students. And so that's a great opportunity for them to come be social, do some hands-on activities, maybe some crafts or some art or some STEM activities that might be related to a certain season, or get a start on some community outreach projects that we might be doing for those students as well. I mentioned very briefly, but AMS is a feature of what we offer, art, movement, and STEM enrichment activities. Those are activities that take place at lunchtime. So we have a portion of time dedicated, obviously, to just relaxing and to lunch. But again, we want to keep some activities to keep enriching our students and utilize these learning opportunities and moments in the form of group activities, along with a lunch schedule and kind of clubs, an art club, STEM club, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. So lots of hands-on experiments and things like that. Additionally, we have school-wide activities. We had our first inaugural school-wide science fair last year. It was an amazing hit. Our parents were amazed. Our students really loved the joint combined effort in collaborating to explore scientific, the scientific realm. We have school rallies. One of my favorites is Holiday Hoopla. And so that's right around the holiday break for winter. And so we come together and throw a big old party, really, and it's super fun. And we have snacks and we make a video that's really fun. And we have our learning centers log on and all of our school campuses throughout the 50 some odd locations that we have come on and say hi to each other, because it's important for them not just to connect in their individual school environment in a learning center, but also see the bigger digital school that they are a part of. We have yearbooks for our end of the year celebration and graduation ceremony. This is huge. They walk away with a yearbook that you don't have to pay for, Mom and Dad. It's amazing. And we also, like I mentioned, do some community outreach projects, especially during the period of time right around the holidays. That's a big key time that we like to do that. That's just to scratch the surface, y'all. We've got a lot more that we offer too. A word quickly about our curriculum. We, again, partner with Pearson Connections Learning. It is a recognized and proven curriculum. It is standards-based and standards-aligned. We use the Pearson Connection management system so that you as a parent can log on and get up-to-date information about grades, about progress. You can see assignments, etc. It's very exciting, and it's a great way to partner with us as you're monitoring your students' progress. You can do that. Some of our parents don't want to do that, and so we still are going to meet with you and have those communication touch points, whether formal, like a parent conference, or even informal, like just touching base with you in the lobby, to have those kinds of conversations as well. So additional information is available down here at the Pearson website. There's even samples of curriculum that are available on that website, or if you're interested, and again, once we connect you with our learning centers to get more questions answered specifically about Academy, our leaders in each of those locations, those school locations, also have samples of curriculum that they can show you should you want to come in and have that kind of a visit as well. So again, I've mentioned kind of our full day and partial day schedule. We have 3 instructional options and packages, if you will, that are available to really round out that individualized experience of one-to-one and or small groups. So what I'd like to be able to do is talk to you a little bit about those models right now. The academic models will be recommended, it's important to know this, based on several factors, a key one of which is the student's learning ability evaluation. I mentioned previously that we do assessment before we start seeing any student for any of our services. And so with that, we look at the student's learning profile, and then we can customize and create the recommendation for what type of sensory cognitive instruction and remediation is going to be helpful in conjunction with what kind of one-to-one focus versus small group focus might be helpful once we get to the application of curriculum. So let me share a little bit about that with you now. One of our packages that we offer that is the most customized and individualized is the gold package option. All curriculum and all hours of sensory cognitive instruction are done in a one-to-one format. And the gold package consists of up to 200 hours of sensory cognitive intervention. That is a lot of intervention hours. Now, a lot of times those are going to be front-loaded at the start of the school year to really quickly close that processing gap, and then we're going to hit curriculum really hard. Other times, students might benefit from doing some of that front-loading of the sensory cognitive remediation and then continuing on a less intensive, rigorous schedule, that intervention, throughout the course of the school year in conjunction with curriculum. Again, these are the kinds of plans we're going to help define for you better. It should be noted that students enrolled for less than a full year of Academy might receive a reduced amount of that intervention. Because as a school, not only do we have a responsibility to remediate, but we also have a responsibility to get your child enough curriculum so that we can feasibly say they have finished X grade level at the end of our school year. A period of sensory cognitive instruction, as I mentioned, may very well be necessary and recommended before Academy starts. Another package option that we offer is the Silver package. Now, Silver is half of our curriculum and instruction is grouped, and the other half is going to be done one-to-one, with 150 hours of that intervention being done one-to-one. That's going to be one-to-one, no doubt, with any package. But once we start curriculum, this is the opportunity to maybe keep something one-to-one like English language arts, which can often be really difficult for students, and then maybe group things like science and social studies, just as an example. And again, students who are enrolled for less than a full year of Academy might receive a reduced amount of that intervention, okay? What I need to also tell you is the availability of the Silver package may vary based on international locations. Silver is available in all of our US locations as recommended. But in our international locations, for example, London, there may be reduced availability there. Our bronze package. This one offers a lot of group work and slightly less one-to-one when it comes to curriculum, and yet it still offers up to 100 hours of that remediation. And again, if you're enrolled in less than a full year, it might mean slightly less hours than the 100. And again, package availability does vary with our international locations. So important to know that. So we're going to shift into a little bit of some research and development, which is really exciting to me. But first, before we do that, I wanted to give you a little testimonial that we received. So an Academy student shares their story. This is young little Nicholas. And he said, I began attending Lindamood-Bell the summer after completing 3rd grade. He did some summer instruction first. And he's had awesome teachers since attending Lindamood-Bell. Now he went into, after the summer, our school environment. That's the path a lot of our students take. He says, they've helped me increase my confidence in my reading, writing, and math skills. Excuse me. Now I love reading and sharing my books with others. We cannot create the love of learning and decide that a student's going to love learning, but we can create the confidence and the skill and the ability that will allow them to choose whether or not they love learning and love reading. That was clearly the case for little Nicholas. So what I want to share with you now is some exciting information about our demographics of students who enroll in the Academy, and then I'm going to show you some of the internal data that we've collected recently about progress for these students. So we are research validated. We respond to the response of our students for intervention and for curriculum. And this slide is showing you that about 51% of students who come to Lindamood-Bell Academy come to us with a prior diagnosis. What that means is nearly 50% come to us having never received a diagnosis before. Now, we do not diagnose, okay? It's important to know that. We don't diagnose with dyslexia or ADHD. However, we can dissect and figure out exactly where that learning process is challenging for a student and remediate that. You don't need a diagnosis to do that. But what I thought would be interesting to show you is that 22%, so over a fifth of our students, come to us, almost a quarter of them, with a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD. Another large percentage come to us with that diagnosis of dyslexia. And then you can see if we add this up, another fifth of our students, right, almost 20% here, maybe a little bit over, come to us with some other kind of diagnosis, including specific learning disability, autism spectrum disorders, central auditory processing disorder, hyperlexia, and then there's some others in there thrown in as well. But this is really important to understand and note, because a lot of times parents go, yeah, but do you work with students who are dyslexic? Yeah, but can you work with students who are ADHD? The answer to that is a resounding yes, we can, because we get that learning profile and we can go ahead and address those areas where they're weak. So this is a really exciting slide for me. This is a sampling, and sort of a, not a sampling, excuse me, an average of all of our Academy students from the last 2 years of Academy. And what I want to show you is that an average age of students is just barely 12 years old, and the average grade for that is about 5th grade. Now, if you might be doing some inferencing right now, you might go, well, yeah, usually they're 12 years old in the 6th grade. This could indicate that a lot of these students who actually come to Academy have already been held back for a year. That's my sort of quick thinking assumption here. And the number of hours on average of instruction that they've received, 858 hours. And what I want you to interpret that as is not only the period of hours of intervention that they've received with us, but also then the application of that to curriculum over the course of their school year. Now that means the average is some students have done less and some students, have done more. That might mean they've done more sensory cognitive work and less curriculum. That might mean they've enrolled a little bit later in the year and done less of both. So it really depends. It's, again, just an average. And what I want you to notice is that the light blue scores that you see right here, those bars, are all indicative of the pre-test scores that a student came in with, or that these students on average came in with. The other perspective I want to show you so that you really understand the impact of those light blue bars compared to the dark blue bars is, what is the average range? We, using the assessments that we utilize for students, consider the average range to be about the 25th percentile all the way up to about the 75th percentile, okay? That's the average range. When you look at these light blue bars, what you can see is that really most, if not all, except for vocabulary, comes in below the average range for these students. So they come in with an average vocabulary, but all of these other skills with sounding out words and word decoding and sight word recognition and reading fluency and spelling, these all are coming in below the average range, that 25th percentile. Those dark blue bars, however, indicate what happens after instruction and intervention. And what you'll notice is nearly all of them are either at or above, or excuse me, comfortably within that average range. Now there's a few outliers down there, and that's okay, because that's where we get into more application of these functions into schoolwork that require a little bit more practice. So another way to look at this is those orange bars. These are now standard scores, not percentiles. Those orange bars represent large scale changes in a student's ability. The blue indicates a medium kind of level change, and the green indicates a small change. Well, guess what? These are the two pieces, spelling and reading rate, that need lots and lots of practice for them to improve. Whereas all of our foundations and our foundational pieces have improved to a large degree. And the application of those to things that are reading accuracy, reading fluency, comprehension, following directions, those have improved greatly as well. Now, this slide, it looks almost the same, but this is now specifically our special education students. Now what I want you to notice is there's a slightly smaller N. It's about half of what our previous slide was. The average age is now about 6 months older. Same thing with our grade level, slightly older. And the trajectory of what happens with those pre-test scores is these students are coming in even lower than the general average of our academy students. And yet, at the same time, what you can see is the results from all of these dark blue bars indicates nearly the same amount of gains, if not in some areas more. And so again, excitingly enough, we have our spelling that's a greater gain than just our average. Everything else looks about the same. Fluency is a little bit lower because again, that rate is involved in that. And these students in special education need a little bit more help with that, a little more application to get that bar bumped up. But again, the gains are really exciting because they parallel those students who maybe don't have a diagnosis or who aren't identified as special education but come in just really struggling. These are students who came in with strictly a decoding focus. Maybe they were diagnosed dyslexic or maybe specific learning disabilities, something like that. And this is extremely interesting because now we've got a slightly younger age set and a slightly younger grade level, because a reading challenge, calling out those words, is often much easier to identify and faster to identify than, say, a comprehension challenge, okay? So what you'll notice is, again, those light blue pre-test scores, really far below average, really far below average. And yet, those retest scores, those dark blue bars, are definitely now up within that average range. Huge growth. Still some areas in here with functions that need just simply more application and more practice. But that's what we get in Academy, is that hour-to-hour daily practice. Again, standard score changes. These are huge kinds of gains for our students. Huge. And you'll notice with the focus, these are the kids who did the Seeing Stars program as a primary focus, meaning that they were the ones who focused on learning to see those letters inside their mind's eye, okay? But even bigger gains across the board here, and a medium-sized gain where previously I showed you some of those gains were slightly smaller. So this Seeing Stars symbol imagery program, picturing those letters and words, has really made a difference for these students. Now look at this. Comprehension focus. Remember just a slide or two ago I said that a reading weakness is much faster and easier to identify. Look at the average age and grade level now of the students who are coming to us with a comprehension focus. Nearly 2 years older in terms of age. Fascinating, isn't it? And yet, again, you can see the trajectory between the light blue and the dark blue. We've got some below average scores. We've got some scores moving up into higher average. And we've got some really significant gains happening here. And let me show you this color-coded because sometimes it's easier to see that and navigate it. So comprehension and oral directions for those students who struggled with picturing the content, the movie, the black horse whose wild mane was waving in the air, right, as he was running. These are the kind of functions we definitely want to be able to see improvement in, because it's going to help them with their vocabulary, their comprehension, and overall attack of curriculum. So I get the privilege right now of sharing with you just briefly about some groundbreaking work that we got to partner with that was done out of the University of Washington, utilizing our Seeing Stars program. So the article is titled Rapid and Widespread White Matter Plasticity During an Intensive Reading Intervention. Okay, so for those of you who love research, this probably clicks right away and this is really exciting. And for those of you who are like, would you break it down, Emily, in layman's terms? Let me do that for you. So basically what happened here is we took 24 students who were between the ages of 7 and 12 years old. They all had a profile and a diagnosis of dyslexia, okay? This is key. This is key. They came in and they did 8 weeks. So 8 weeks of a total of 160 hours of intensive intervention, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's a part-time job, you guys, right? This intensive intervention happened for them, and some really groundbreaking and miraculous things happened. So there's a lot of fantastic scientific jargon and anatomical vernacular that's right down in here, and I'm going to let you read that. But here's what I really want to connect for you is I like to be visual, and I like to use this visual. So this green area right here is where language and sounds are processed in your brain. The blue area, which is actually on a different side of your brain, is where visual imprints, such as letters on a page, are transmitted. And then this pinkish purple area is kind of the connector between those two. And so what this study is showing us is that these two parts, the imagery and the language, through the Seeing Stars program and this very intensive intervention, connected in the area that we suspected it would, or I should say that the researchers suspected it would. And it shows that this link now increases a student's processing ability. So to break this down, when we looked at those reading skills, because we assessed a student's skills before and after the intervention, we also did MRIs before and after intervention to see what the brain was doing and to see that visual image that I showed you previously. So these students' reading skills improved by an average of 1 full grade level. That's average, you guys, in an 8-week period of time in phonological and orthographic processing. Again, remember what these students were trained to do is picture those letters in their mind's eye and use that and apply it to reading and spelling. What we saw is large-scale changes in the white matter, which is responsible for conductivity and connecting these parts of the brain. whereas the subjects in the control group, showed no changes. The results of this study illustrate that the Seeing Stars program, one of the remediation programs that we utilize with your students who need that program, led to increased brain structure conductivity and improved reading for students with reading difficulties, including dyslexia. Now, from the lead researcher on this program, Dr. Jason Yateman, he says, while many parents and teachers might worry that dyslexia is permanent, reflecting intrinsic deficits in the brain, these findings demonstrate that targeted, intensive reading programs not only lead to substantial improvements of reading skills, but change the underlying wiring of the brain's reading circuitry. Dr. Yateman used this phrase, brain engineering, and it's quite profound and it's quite true, and we get to see the daily results of that with these students who do this program. Extremely exciting, you guys. You can't tell I'm excited about that. We also partner with a lot of other entities, and I should say by partnering, our programs are utilized as they are independently researching those programs. And you can see these are all available on our website. You can go and look at these. I don't want to take that much more of your time, but University of Washington, University of Alabama at Birmingham, that's a comprehension study. MIT, partnering with MIT to look at socioeconomic status and reading disabilities. Very exciting. Again, Georgetown University, Texas A&M. Again, please, I encourage you to go to our website and look at those. It's really fascinating information, and it really adds credence to what we're saying when we say we are evidence-based, and when I say we're research validated. Not just are we doing our own internal assessment and analysis of that data to respond to the response of students, but we have these partners in research that are independently verifying that as well. And that's just something that's so exciting and helps us build our model and continue to build that model and redefine that model. So one more story for you very quickly. Lindamood-Bell Academy has been a very positive environment that has taught Justin amazing skills for learning, enabling educational advancement beyond what we had imagined. This is a parent of an academy student in Los Gatos, and I actually had the privilege of meeting this family personally and meeting this student, and it's amazing. It's amazing when I get to get out in the field and meet you and meet your students and see them, whether it's even in the virtual realm or in the live individual realm. It's just amazing, the dreams that come true, the students who go from being not confident, being scared of school, having such anxiety, to finishing the year, coming into an instructor's office and saying, look what I did, guess what I did, look how I did, look what I've improved on. You can't buy that kind of happiness. It's amazing. And I'm so privileged to be a part of that. So to get started, we always start with that evaluation. I mentioned that previously. We do then a consultation and a customized meeting for you to lay out what an instructional plan is going to look like for your child. We also are going to do a little bit of an interview and a conversation and talk to you a little bit more about what are your desires and expectations for the academy and for the instruction. What are some concerns you have? What are some things to share about your student that are positives that you want us to be aware of? So again, that's speaking with us about your student. It's completing the learning ability evaluation, and then it's meeting to discuss that instructional plan. There are all sorts of questions that you are bound to have. I'm positive about that. You're welcome to contact us at these numbers or look at us at Academy online, and you can even email us your questions as well after the fact. Again, my name is Emily Jane. Thank you for hanging in there with me. It's been a pleasure to come to you today and share obviously something that I myself am so passionate about, and that I really look forward to hearing about you and your students and seeing what we can do to get your student on their dream of academic success. Thanks all for joining. We'll see you next time.